Change is uncomfortable. And if you don't know the stages of change, it makes change even harder. So, in the Joyosity book, the conclusion is an invitation to change. And so today, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the stages of change. And this isn't just creating more joy at work. This is the stages of learning absolutely any new skill in every area of your life. These are the stages of individual change. So I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So if you are new here, welcome to the Joyosity podcast. I'm so glad you found your way. Here we are in this corner of leadership and life talking about joy at the center and where we can design your entire life, work, and the rest of your one continuous life for joy. I'm Jenn Whitmer, international speaker, leadership consultant, and all around joy bringer, and glad that you are here. And if you've been a longtime listener, I am so grateful for you. Welcome. We are starting to wrap up our series inspired by my upcoming book that is out now. And it's called Joyosity: How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and in Life, even if things are what they are. And what we do on the podcast is we're not settling for toxicity, constant overwhelm, or the exhaustion of it's all just too much. So every episode, I'm going to bring you some stories, some research, some tools you can use right away to start creating more joy and a thriving workplace by starting with yourself. So when I think about change, I sometimes get really excited. And in my history as a hardcore Enneagram 7, I have 52,000 ideas and I start 51,000 of them and finish very few. So I've had to learn why I end up not actually creating change. And when you start looking at change, there are several stages of change. And we're going to get really specific about a new skill. So in the book, Joyosity, there's an introduction and about 13 chapters of how. There's a lot of why and a lot of how. So those questions get answered, but then it's really easy to get stuck. And one of the things I say a lot to myself, to my coaching clients in keynotes is information ain't transformation. Just because you know it doesn't mean you're doing it. Otherwise, we would all be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And so we have to actually understand how to apply and do the doing of change. And that's where we get really stuck. And I think part of it is because we don't understand the stages of change. So in the book, I tell you 4 stages of change, but then I also give you things from Dr. Jacqueline Kerr, who is a behavior change scientist, about how to create change more broadly, not just in yourself. But because you have to start with you, that's what we're going to talk about on the podcast today. The 4 stages of developing a new skill and what that feels like in the states of change. So I'm just going to pause and remind you again, Joyosity, you can get it now at jennwhitmer.com/books. And it has, like I said, it is chock full of why joy matters and what joy really is, what it looks like. We've done this whole series that gives a little bit more of the why and the research behind the book, but there is so much more in the book itself and in the accompanying playbook, the Joyosity Works playbook. So those 2 companions will be your guides, your manual, your field guide in how you actually create joy in your one whole continuous life. So you can get that, like I said, at jennwhitmer.com/books. And it's available all the places you get your books, but you can find it there so you know you're going to the right Joyosity, because sometimes people spell it with a C, but it's not. It's with an S, as if we were putting joy and curiosity smashed up together. So make sure that you go to jennwhitmer.com/books, where you can get it in all the places where you buy your books. And so the 4 stages of change, that's what we're going to jump back into. The first stage of learning a new skill is actually unconscious incompetence. And here's what that means. You don't know what you don't know. It's kind of a state of bliss in some ways because you're like, oh, this is great. I don't even know. But you're also struggling. And unconscious incompetence is that state that you feel stuck, but you don't know why. Why can't I get this? What's the problem here? Why can't I speak up in this meeting? Why is it constantly a communication struggle with this person? Why am I the one that only sees this? Sometimes we can get really critical of other people. And rather than explore inward, of saying, well, is there some skill I don't have? Is there something that I need to grow in to make this better? That is that place of unconscious incompetence. You don't actually know that you're incompetent at the skill that you need. So that's the first stage. And sometimes, like I said, it's kind of bliss. Other times, you're so stuck, but you don't know why. Then stage two. Stage two is conscious incompetence. You're like, oh, that's why, and I'm not doing it well. That feels, I think, some of the worst because you know what the skill is. You've probably gotten some information about the skill. So, one of the skills that I talk about in the book is how to change your story. We call that the SNAP process. And so if you know the SNAP process, but you're not doing it really well, or you're just learning it, you're just practicing it, you're like, oh my gosh, why is this so hard? You know why it's hard. You know how to fix it. You're just not competent at it yet. That, I think, is personally the most frustrating state of change, which is where most people give up. You give up in that stage because it feels yucky. Like it feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward. You're like, oh my gosh, why can't I get this? And it's really easy to give up in that place also because we like instant results. Why isn't this working? Why am I not better? Why am I not fixed now? It's not because you need to be fixed. It's because you're learning a skill and it takes time. If you've ever watched a toddler or an infant learn how to walk, it takes time for them not to just be all over the place where they're like, that's why they're called toddlers, because they toddle around. It is not a competent stage of walking. Most toddlers just don't give up though. They're pretty resilient about that. They're motivated. There's something I want to get. I'm going to go after it. And that is that skill of developing. And that is the energy that I want for you in that stage of conscious incompetency. Be like a toddler just learning how to walk. You're all over the place, but you're working toward it. You keep practicing it. Maybe another picture to help you is if you've ever moved. You've ever moved and the switch to your bedroom is on a different wall. And so you go into the bedroom and you move your hand to the right and it's like, oh my gosh, it's not there. It's on the left. And you do that for probably a few weeks because you have muscle memory over there. You have muscle memory on that right-hand side. You have to develop muscle memory on the left-hand side to flip that light switch. And then suddenly it changes again. That is this practice of unconscious incompetency where you're like, why do I keep hitting it over here? Oh, I know that it's on the left, but you have to keep practicing it. And so that conscious incompetency is ripe for giving up. And what I'm going to tell you is keep going because it's about to get better. Because step 3 is conscious competency. You keep choosing to do the good thing and you are seeing the results. You feel competent at it. You know that you're doing it, but it's a really active choice. Back to that light switch. You walk into the room and you're like, oh, right, on the left. I should probably say correct rather than right. But okay, the light switch is on the left. The light switch is on the left and you are thinking about it. It's it's right up in the front of your brain. You're actively trying to develop that skill. And maybe it's something when you're, like I said, going through the SNAP process. You're more fluent at stop, notice, ask, and pivot. You're more fluent at changing your story and your mindset, but you still really have to think about it, especially if it's an old story that you're consciously working on and consistently working on. This stage of conscious competency feels a lot better. You're like, yeah, I'm doing it. You're really, really aware of it, and it feels good. You're starting to see results. It doesn't mean that there aren't difficult times, but you know that it's happening. I was joking with my friend Kwame Christian, who endorsed Joyosity. He is the CEO of the American Negotiation Institute, author, podcaster, all around amazing person. Anyway, he is a gym rat, a little bit like I am. And so he posted on Instagram one time that he was doing 20 pounds lateral raises. So what that means is he had 20-pound weights in each hand, so gripping with his hands, 20 pounds, and then lifting his arms straight out to the side to make a T. Good night. That is a lot of weight. Or no, he had like 45 pounds. That's what it was. It was so insane. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can do 15. And I remember when 15 was a hard thing. And like I had to really work at it. And now I don't think anything of it. I just lift it up. I can do 15, which means I actually have to go up to 20. But that is that space of conscious competency. You feel really good about it. You're like, yeah, I can do this. Kwame can do 45. I don't necessarily think I'm going to ever get up to 45 pounds to do that. And that's okay. Because what will trip you up in conscious competency is somebody else is doing it more or better. You don't need to do more or better. You need to do your level of competency on the skill that you're growing. So if you are developing more joy at work, it's okay that you're not doing all of the things. You're focusing on one thing and you're doing that one thing well. Then you can add more, but start with the thing that feels good and get to that conscious competency space. Because what's next is unconscious competency. You don't even realize you're doing it. You don't even realize that you walk well anymore. That toddler figured it out. You just stand up and you walk. Or other skills. If you've got mobility skills, or mobility issues, you've got other things that are easy for you now that you've had to relearn, that you don't think about. This is just the way that you do it. That level of unconscious competency is powerful. You don't even struggle with it so much anymore. Every once in a while, something's going to happen. A big deal. You might get injured. A whole new set of difficulty comes your way. You might come back into conscious competency, but for the most part, it's handled. That's the power of change. You move from, you don't even know that you don't know, that unconscious incompetency where you feel stuck. And then you move to conscious incompetency. You're like, why can't I do that? This is the thing I need to learn how to do, but I just can't do it yet. And then you move into conscious competency where you're like, I'm doing it, I'm actively practicing it, I'm thinking about it, and it's going well. And then it just becomes who you are. Who you are is somebody who knows how to manage their personality. Who you are is a great decision maker. Who you are is somebody who practices the work of caring for yourself and caring for others. You become unconsciously competent at that work. And that's the power of change. So in Joyosity, make sure you get your copy at jennwhitmer.com/books. You can learn how to put that together with other people to create change inside an organization or a community. It's really powerful to do that because when you start to create change, that you work at, that's when the outcomes also change. You feel different. You feel almost in that space of like, oh, I forgot why it was hard before. Why did I ever live like that before? You make change happen. So let me, put my coach hat on because like I do. Where is the place in the skill that you're working on right now? I want you to identify where you are in one of those 4 places: unconscious incompetency, conscious incompetency, conscious competency, or unconscious competency. Where are you? Where do you need to go next? That's the place of great and powerful change. I'd love for you to share this episode with someone who needs reminding that change is a process and that information is not transformation. And share it with them on LinkedIn or Instagram. Tag me. I'm at Jenn_Whitmer. Send me an email. Where are you in this? Jenn with 2 N's at JennWhitmer.com. I would love for you to rate and subscribe to the show. When you rate and review and subscribe, it helps us all develop more joy at work because this message gets out. You're a part of the movement of creating positive culture with complex people. Because as we just said, change takes a little bit of time. It takes lots of reminders. It takes everybody working together, and you rating and subscribing the podcast helps tremendously in that power of change. But I'm just going to leave you with one thing to remind you. Information ain't transformation. You've got to start doing.